Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Knowledge Finder. Today we have Landry on the show, the founder of BCB Bitcoin ATM, which was the UK's largest Bitcoin ATM. That was in 2015, and he's also founded the Stoodioclub app, which allows you to book studio space anywhere via an app. So welcome, Landry. How's it going?
Thank you, Eli. I'm doing all right.
Doing all right, hanging in there.
Yeah.
So we've invited you today to talk about your career journey, how you start companies, why you are the way you are in terms of how you operate. Let's start from the jump. Bitcoin BCB ATM, was that your first venture?
No. So my first venture was way back in secondary school, selling confectionaries, so crisps, drinks and stuff like that, because it wasn't allowed in my school. So, donuts, things like that, really. They wanted healthy eating, so we started sneaking food into the schools and selling it to other people during lunchtime and in class and stuff like that. So that was my first venture, probably about 13 years old.
Okay, so let's get into your professional career journey leading up to the point of founding BCB.
Yeah, so professionally, I'd say I probably started in school again. So me and my current co-founder, Ryan, we started importing clothing from China in school and then selling it in school as well. Yeah. We were doing Avrexes way back then, Air Force Ones, Armani, all of that kind of stuff. So during schools, and then after school, that went pretty well. We then, 15, 16, we went into like motorcycles, mopeds. So getting mopeds off eBay and stuff, fixing them up, reselling them. Yeah. About 15, 16. After that, we then got into cars, so we opened up a small car company, so selling about 3 or 4 cars a month initially, and then it grew to about 5-6 cars a month after that. And then we did that for a long time, juggling all of these companies at the same time. But in 2014, another close friend of mine at the time, he was telling me about Bitcoin, 2014, something about Bitcoin, but I wasn't trying to hear it. Yeah. Because nobody else was talking about it, so I thought it couldn't be that big, and it wasn't worth a lot of money then. But the conversation carried on. He kept on mentioning it. He was, trading it here and there and using it to buy and sell stuff in America and stuff. So, he told me, look, the price is going up kind of thing. And that I remember we sat in his house in Camden, 2015. And, at the same time, I was going around with him, and he showed me like a Bitcoin ATM. And he's like, oh, this is how it works. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I'm like, how many of these are there in the UK? No. First, he showed me them in America, and there were loads of them in America, Yeah. And he showed me videos of people putting lots of money in and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, that's huge. So then I asked him, how many are there in the UK? And we went on this website called Coin ATM Radar, right?
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
yeah. So we went on there and we're looking at the map of how much there are in America compared to the UK. And we were like, there's actually none, basically. There's like, I think at the time there might have been like 2 in London or something, right? 3 or 2, around that figure. So we looked at it and there was, hundreds in America, and there's only like 2 in London. We're like, that's crazy. So
what year was this?
This was 2015, right?
Okay.
I think the first ever one was in Old Street in 2012. Right, by a company called Satoshi Point. Now one of my close friends, I'd say, the current CEO. Yeah. So we looked at that and we thought, well, there's a gap in the market here. It's huge in America. Whatever happens in America usually trickles down into the UK. Yeah. Right. So then we went around and looked at how these machines worked, and we tested it. Used them and seen the whole process, and then I went home and just started kind of writing down a mini business plan from there. And then I went to my friend and said, look, here's what I'm thinking we should do. But he was, very busy with other projects going on. He's like, yeah, it sounds cool, but I haven't got the time right now. And I was kind of upset. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can just, carry on until he's done what he's doing or whatever. So I carried on, finishing off the business plan, looking at numbers, projections and stuff like that, seeing where in London I could put them. But, I didn't have a lot of money then. I didn't want to spend 10 to 15 grand on one machine that might not work. Yeah. So luckily I came across a second-hand one on eBay. So I think these guys bought one from America, shipped it here, and they couldn't get it into a shop. Because no one knew what it was. It was so hard. So luckily I got some money together through some credit cards, family and stuff like that. And I went and bought that second-hand machine. It was in White End. I remember the house. Every time I drive past it, I'm like, yeah, that's where I bought my first ever Bitcoin ATM. All right. Yeah. The guy was in there, the machine was there, and then had a good old chat, sat there, a cup of tea, had a good old chat with the guy about why he couldn't get it to work and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So eventually took this thing, put it in my car, took it home, and now I'm sitting there with this Bitcoin ATM. I don't know how to use it, right? Yeah. Because there's no tutorials or nothing on YouTube, because it's just a brand new, space that nobody's really trying to market or show you how, right? Yeah. So now I've then contacted the manufacturers and say, hey, I bought this machine from these guys. These are the keys for the, for authorization for me to access it and stuff like that. So then I ended up, creating a really good relationship with the head of the support guy at the time. Yeah. And, because I was messaging him at 3 a.m, because I had to learn to code.
Yeah. What language was it in?
I can't even remember. Because what were we using? I think it was C++.
Okay.
So literally, I was like, boom, my background is business and accounting. So I'm just reading code, hoping it works, copying and pasting it, making some adjustments, and I'm like, I'm a fish out of water right now, right? Yeah. So, but I was like, if I can't get this to work, then I've spent all that money on nothing, then I'd be in the same position as those guys. So I just kept on messaging him, said, hey, I've tried this code, it's not working, that code is not working, and we're going back and forth to a point where he's like, you know what, just add me on WhatsApp and let's conversate on there instead of through emails and stuff, right? So I became really, really good friends with these guys. And then, once, I think it took me about 2 or 3 weeks to get it to run properly. Putting cash in, testing it out, make sure all the wallets are working, security's in place, notifications, everything. Yeah. Simultaneously, I was building a website, and, first time building a website, I think at the time, Wix. First ever website, there's a Wix website. So simultaneously doing that, setting up email responses and all that kind of, trying to automate it at the same time. Because at the time I was doing so many other projects, I didn't want to be answering phones and yada yada yada. So I think about a month after I got the machine, I was ready to kind of deploy it. So I put on a suit, started knocking on doors at local convenience stores, right? Yeah. Not one. I would go from I remember I started in my local area, Islington, going up and down all the streets in my suit. It was early summer, hot, knocking on hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm offering you. I will pay you, I'm going to give you this money, just put the machine in your store. Yeah. Right? And they were just no. Literally, I got no for 3 months straight. Yeah. No. And it was depleting. I was like, now I see why those guys want to sell their machine. Yeah. Because all the shopkeepers, they just didn't know what this is. They didn't know what Bitcoin is, first of all. No one knew what Bitcoin was. And literally, they just see this young boy in a suit, and they just don't trust the idea, I think it was. But, coming from a young person like me, because I'm not, a typical salesman, clean or whatever. Yeah. Looking like, the guys that normally come and do it, sell SIM cards or whatever. Yeah. So visually, it wasn't working for me. So I had to re-strategize. Luckily, I had a friend who knew somebody who had a shop, right? And when he found out that I had this machine, because I remember I was, doing Snapchats, and I'm like, oh man, I can't get this machine in stores. And he saw the timeline and he was like, what's that? I was like, oh, I've got a Bitcoin machine, I can't get it in stores. He's like, oh, my friend, man, went to school together. You know, I've known him for 15 years. I'll talk to him. And luckily, he was young and he knew what Bitcoin was.
Yeah.
So it was his dad's store, but he worked in there, so he convinced his dad to put the machine in his store. And that was our first ever machine in store in Edmonton, North London, Edmonton, right? Yeah. E9. And coincidentally enough, that Enfield, right? Sorry, not Edmonton, Enfield. That's where the first ever ATM in the UK was installed as well, Barclays Enfield. Okay. So that will always go with that. So our first ever Bitcoin ATM was installed in Enfield, and the first ever ATM in the UK was installed in Enfield as well.
Why was it in Enfield? You know?
I don't know. There's a big plaque. There's a big plaque at Barclays Enfield, so it's there. It's crazy because I remember I was just there one day and I saw this plaque and I was reading. I was like, oh wow, that's crazy.
I think it would be in Central or something.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day, I guess.
Exactly. So on this journey, I learned so many things. So we got that one in store, and that one kind of took off straight away. You know, done a lot of posts on social media, on you know, loads of groups, Telegram, online forums. Just posted it everywhere and say, hey, there's a Bitcoin ATM in Enfield now. You know. I didn't want to put it there simply because I'm like, right, it's so far away, no one's going to go out there. But within a week, you know, £200 goes in, £300, £400, and it's just building and building. And I'm like, whoa, that was okay. So within about a month, I'm like, okay, I need another one. It's going too quick. Because I'm like literally having to fly there, empty the machine, put it in a bank, get more Bitcoin, and it's going too quick.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey. So what I did was I went to, you know, a very small circle of friends and family and said, hey guys, look, this is what's happening right now. I need more capital. Do you guys want to invest? A lot of people are like, yeah, it looks good, but I don't really trust it, that kind of thing. That was the response. You know, I've done that about 3 or 4 times trying to get capital. In the end, it just ended up being my mum. Good old mum. She's like, here's some money kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I ordered 2 more Bitcoin ATMs from that, right? So my mum became a partner in the business, really.
Yeah. That's a good story.
Yeah, like literally, my mum was my savior, really. This whole story, yeah, my mum's been there for me the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So I get 2 more Bitcoin ATMs now, and I'm like, okay, I can't go out there and put these in, you know, because I've tried it for 3 months straight and no one, they just see me and they're like, no, right? So, luckily, one of my neighbors hears about what I'm doing and he's like, hey, I know this guy down the road who owns a convenience store.
Yeah.
I can speak to him for you. He was Polish, the guy was Polish and the owner was Turkish. Yeah. So they speak. And then, yeah, so then they invite me over to the shop. I turn up, they're like, who is this guy? Do you know what I mean? They wasn't expecting me.
What a young black guy coming
exactly.
In. No, it's so true, and I'm sure we've all had that experience where we're trying to do something, and they look at you like, yeah, you're a young black guy though. You don't really look like, I don't know, you came from Oxford and you're in a suit clean and you can do the same job. It's just a perception thing. It's weird, but I think we all face that, whether people like to say it outwardly or not. For me, in my career journey, I got to the point very quickly where I was so comfortable with my capability, where I played on that a lot. Like I really could work the room based on that. Yeah. Because my perception upon entry was already set. So I'm working the room just based on what they think of me, but I'm navigating. Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy because, and it's hard because of the kind of sector I'm in, right? Financial sector. That's always been the whole situation. So like, you know, once I got in the room, he looked at me and he's like, I want more money.
Yeah. I
was like, you know what? We've got no option. So initially I was offering people like £200 a month to have the machine. He wanted 400. So I was like, okay, here's the money, put the machine in the reel. Because I knew how much money he was making in the other one. I was like, well, that's fine. We're gonna triple that within a day. Right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. I gave it to him. Within about 2 months, he was like, "Listen, I need to help you. How do I help you?" And I was like, "Yeah, right." So, so I hired him. It's crazy. I was like, you know what? I'll give you. What did I offer him? I offered him like £500 per contract.
Yeah.
To go out with me in the car and sign contracts. Actually, before I get to that part, in between, so I had 2 machines now, right? I put one to him, and then I advertised on Bitcoin, on Gumtree, and then somebody called the phone. I answered it, said, "Hey," the guy goes, "Yeah, I saw the ads about the Bitcoin ATM. I want one in my store." So okay, cool. This is incredible. And then he's like, "Yeah, come down. We'll have a chat." So I turn up to the store. It was a what do you call them? Vape shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I turn up to the store, knock on the door. The guy comes out the front, and he's looking around, and he's like, "Oh man, I got an appointment with a guy, to discuss something." I'm like, "Yeah, it's me."
Yeah.
He looks at me like, "What? You're the Bitcoin guy?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah." "You're the guy I spoke to on the phone?" And I'm like, "Yeah." "You didn't sound black." And I was like, "Do you know what's crazy? This guy's black himself."
Yeah.
So I was like, "Bro, how are you gonna discriminate against me when you're black as well?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Nah, man, you just didn't sound black, man. And I didn't expect this from a black." I was like, "Wow."
Yeah.
But eventually we got to chatting, told him the whole business. He loved it. He's like, "Yeah, put the machine in." So now I've got 3 machines in store. So then I go back to this guy with this Turkish guy who's got the machine, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll give you £500 per contract you sign, right?" So I put him in the car. We drive around for 1 day. He gets 3 contracts in 1 day.
The Turkish guy.
Yeah.
What, you just go to a few Turkish shops?
Not suited, nothing.
That's not a surprise to me. I've been to Turkey. I see how they deal with their people and deal with each other. I've got a lot of Turkish friends, so that's understandable.
Yeah.
And it's something for other communities to take note of how they operate.
See that I was like, okay, cool. So he's got 3 contracts in 3 days. I'm like, wow, I owe him £1,500 now, right? That's cool. But in my head, I'm like, it took me 3 months and I couldn't get jack.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, cool. I ordered 3 more machines, put those in. So I thought, let me go out myself and go to my own community and offer this service. So I went to Caribbean stores, African stores, convenience stores owned by black. All closed the door in my face as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was like, and that demoralized me. I'm like, wow, I'm offering to put money in your pocket. You know, the same thing that I'm offering everybody else. Yeah. And I'm offering you a higher price than everybody else. That's the thing. I was like, because I know what the machines are making, I can afford to give you a good deal.
Yeah, I'm with you. And
they just looked at me and they're like, no. And I'm just like, how are you not taking this offer, man? Like, you got nothing to lose. No upfront costs. Like, electricity is pennies, like a computer. It's pennies.
Yeah.
You know, no maintenance, nothing. And you're saying no to like, what, £500 a month?
Yeah,
that blew me.
Like, this is a common trend across the interviews that I've done with the entrepreneurs so far. In the beginning stages, it seems really hard for their own community to support them. For example, Levi said he had to leave Brixton to start selling his sauce before the show. Left Brixton, started selling his sauce, and then the show came about because he did that. He went to other areas and started selling. Yeah, we had a guy, Nathan, that was on last week talking about properties, and it was similar. When he was just starting out his estate agent journey, even with his friends, family, and the close community, they didn't really support him until he already became well established. And it was other people, like an Asian lady, I think he said, that kind of brought him in for him to learn and be able to get to the next step. So it is a weird situation that we have in our own community, but it's something I think the younger generation should address, or at least vocalize, so we know that we need to change that part, because we all know it's happening. Whether it's spoken about or not is one thing, but it's something that does need to change.
It is, because even to get to where we became the UK's largest, we had to go outside, to get funding and partnerships from outside our community. So we then partnered up with the manufacturers who we were getting the machines from eventually. So we swapped machine manufacturers, and we went to a company out in Romania. Amazing guy who then became my mentor. Really, really great guy. You know, supplies these ATMs worldwide to everybody. He invited me to his home. Became really close to their family and stuff. So, and then I go see them like once a year now. And they really brought me in, showed me how to expand it to the capacity that it is now. And yeah, it is that we do sometimes have to go away from where we have to go outside our comfort zone to kind of take our journey to the next level. Example being when we got invited to one of the largest Bitcoin conventions in Russia.
Yeah.
When I told all my friends and family, I'm like, oh, I'm going to Russia. They were like, why are we going to Russia? Haven't you heard about Russia? Like, they don't like black people. They don't like this. They don't like that. And I was like, and that kind of gave me anxiety. And I'm like, oh, wow, like, should I really go?
Yeah.
But I was like, it's business. I got to go. That's how it goes. We fly out there, scared, because of what I heard, and we get to the hotel and stuff, and the customer service is just sublime, right? It's out of this world. Like, I did not feel uncomfortable once. We met up with another company that we were trying to partner with, and they kind of gave us a tour of Russia, took us out, really showed us the city, gave us great tours, and just, really embraced us and showed us a part of Russia that, you never hear about. And then, everywhere we went, we didn't get stares, or I say we, it's mainly me. Even though 99% of the time I was the only black person in the whole room. Right, in this whole convention, probably about 500 people, I was the only black person in the whole room. Right, so when it comes to conversations, it was kind of like, why are you here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I remember, if you ask my business partner Ryan, we saw the presentation, whatever. We've gone on a break now. Everybody's gone into another room to grab snacks and drinks and stuff, and everybody's conversating. And then 2 or 3 people start coming over to me and my partner, and after about 5 minutes, I got a whole circle around me, and they're asking me like, how did you get into Bitcoin? Yeah. And I'm like, the same way as everybody else, right? But it's like, you should, like, you become like the person or interested in that particular room when you're, a fish out of water, really. Because I'm like, a black guy in Russia or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, that was the kind of thing when I went traveling everywhere. Went to Bulgaria, Estonia, Bolivia, like toured Europe. Free Bitcoin, basically. Conventions, meetings, and stuff like that.
Did that kind of work in your favor then? Because if everybody's coming to speak to you, then
that's what it is. It's like, and that's what holds us back, I think, because we hear somebody else's experience. We then try to say, okay, if they've experienced that, I don't want to. Yeah. Instead of saying, you know what, you've experienced that, doesn't mean I'm going to experience that, and let me have my own experience. Definitely. And that's the mentality I always have. Somebody tells me a story, I'm like, that's a great story, but I'm going to experience it myself, and then I'll come and tell you my version. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And to me, my version, I'm like, listen, I'll go to Russia any day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I did not experience any racism. Like, I remember we got lost somewhere, and people went out of the way to, basically kind of hold our hand for like 10 minutes to show us back onto where we were going. So, I don't know why, but it just felt like, I was treated better than I do here, in a sense, But that might have been because I was just in a city. I was in Moscow. It might be different in the rural areas where
it's the same hair though.
Exactly, it's culture here, right? So as soon as you go out, yeah. But that's been my journey, really.
So how did we get to the sale of the company then?
So what happened was I didn't actually sell it. So I'm a shareholder in the company, but I stepped down as the CEO because we had to take it to the next level. And because of my previous past and stuff like that, the FCA didn't find me suitable to be running that company, you know.
I see.
Because we have a majority share in the UK, you know, we're the largest in the UK, and, you know, my previous headlines didn't suit the face, I'd say, of the company.
Really? But that's kind of unfair in terms of, if you look at the American system, you can do whatever. Like, you do your time or whatever, you come out, you do whatever. There's nothing stopping you from going back to the bank unless you've done something that's affected, like something financial, like a financial crime. You couldn't go back. But anything else, you can go and pick up your career where you want to. If you're doing something, like if you're self-employed, basically, you can just go for it and do it. You might not be hired, but if self-employed and you're still blocked from building certain companies, to me, that's a bit unfair. That's a bit of a problem.
It is, and you know, we spoke to some solicitors and went back and forth about it for a long time, and it's just set in their application process. You know, the person has to be suitable, and you know, it's very vague how they put it.
Yeah.
But you know, your history and your experience in the sector is one of them. So it's not just me. It's a lot of people in that industry.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to hinder the company from growing. So I just done the best thing was to just step down. You know. To be honest with you, the crypto space is evolving. To me, not in the best way. You know, regulation. Although we called for regulation in 2016-17 when we were seeing some of the other people who jumped into the space really running a mockery in it. We went to the FCA ourselves and said, hey, look, like, you guys need to really regulate the industry because, you know, there's a lot of dodgy stuff going on right now. Yeah. We wrote them 2 emails, called them up, and they're like, yeah, we don't touch Bitcoin. It's not our thing. Yeah. Right? But the FCA are pretty new themselves. They're a new company, so that wasn't in their remit at the time. But now they've just come in and kind of, you know, started just throwing things around. They're like, yeah, you got to be more like a bank. You got to do this. You got to do that. Not actually understanding how Bitcoin itself works. Some of the stuff they said to us is just not probable. It's just not. It can't function in the Bitcoin industry. Yeah. And that's why there's a list at the moment. You know, there's over 200-300 companies more in the UK that do crypto, but only 4 have been approved, right? Yeah. So you're basically shutting down a whole industry and taking away people's livelihoods, and you haven't even got the foundations right. They're still learning of how to regulate it, but in the meantime they're shutting everybody down. It's like you can't operate until you're regulated. Yeah. But we don't know how to regulate you yet. Do you know what I mean? It's weird. It's like, hold on a minute, that don't make sense. So people like Coinbase, for example, are not even regulated. They're not on the list. Can you imagine? They're huge. They're the biggest in the world. But they're not. Kraken, all these huge exchanges, they're not even on the list. So technically, they're trading illegally. You know, according to the FCA. Yeah. So yeah, regulation is slowly kind of taking away the essence of Bitcoin and the freedom of Bitcoin, which it was designed to do, give people freedom. And this is why I loved it. This is why I was like, oh my God, this can really empower people. That's why I traveled so many places to kind of speak to people and connect, because the whole idea we were building, or, you know, now the company BCB is building, is remittance through crypto. So the idea is to go to the ATM, put cash in, and then somewhere in Asia, Africa, wherever, they can get the cash out. Yeah. We've already built the technology. We've already got the app.
Once you had stepped down as CEO of the company, to grow the company, basically, the vision was the remittance you mentioned. So could you explain that a bit more for us, please?
Yeah, so throughout the last, 3 or 4 years, we were looking at sending money through ATMs. So what that meant was a person could rock up to the ATM, put cash in, and then send it to anybody across the country, whether it's Asia, Africa, Europe, or whatever, and we would charge a small fee in between. But we would still be cheaper than everybody else because we'd be using blockchain, and it would be straight to the person and nobody in between. But, you know, we have the technology, we have the app available, all we're waiting for now is a license.
And who has to provide that?
The FCA. So it is a very hard place to be, because you have everything. You just need the final tick. We've tested it. It's been active. It's been very in-house testing. Application works perfectly fine. We're just waiting for that. So it's a grey area for us because it hinders our growth at the same time. You can have this great idea, you can have everything, but then you have to wait for that final check.
So what's stopping you from doing what Coinbase is doing and just doing it anyway?
Funding. Simply because they've got huge partners, Barclays, they've got banks, Chase Bank, they've got all these huge partners.
Yeah.
And the kind of conversation in the crypto space in the UK at the moment is these guys are, wanting to push, new businesses because they want the market for themselves. But there is absolutely nothing apart from us getting more funding, for example, or getting more partnerships, with huge partners. But it's also a catch-22 because the bigger the partnerships, the bigger the pie you have to give them. Yeah. So we've had great offers before. We've had to turn them down because we know that we're basically giving our business away if we accept those offers. That was very early on when we started.
Yeah.
This is the business was established in 2015. About 6-8 months later, we got our first offer of about £250,000 from an Asian investor. But they wanted a big chunk. And we realized that if they're willing to invest that much that early on, we was onto something. So that's why we kind of grew the business naturally. That's why we done a 360 and went to a round table, friends and family, and said, look, this is what it's going to be like in the next few years. But they didn't grab it. C'est la vie. But then one person did come back to me a couple of years later and say, hey, can I still invest? And we took it, we flipped it for him, and then when he's ready, he took it out again. So we kind of grew the company naturally, no major funding, just a great partnership with my manufacturer. But the company was able to, give jobs to friends and family. It was all in house, and
that's good.
We managed to employ at least five of my friends. About 5 or 6 of my friends, friends and family. Anything that I needed done, we kept it family orientated, and friends I went to school with, gave them jobs and stuff like that. But that was BCB ATM, great company, still about now actually.
So if you're ever using the BCB ATM, Landry's the guy that set that all up, and you heard the story of how it happened now. So support the cause. So if we move on to your next venture, the Stoodioclub app. And by the way, guys, we are in one of Landry's studios today that you can book on the app. So download the app, Stoodioclub. It's on the Play Store already. So just go search for it. And if you're like an up-and-coming rapper, podcaster, content creator, etc., these studios are the place to use. Like, the price is reasonable and they're located in decent places. So definitely download the app and check it out. So how did Stoodioclub come about anyway? Where did the idea come from? And then if you could just tell us a bit about the app as well and how we can book space. So Stoodioclub came about in 2019. So I was in one of my close friends' studios in North London. There was a few of us. There was, about 5 or 6 of us in the studio, and we were just having great conversations, as we always do when we're all together, all long time school friends. And we're just talking about, the career of somebody within the music space, whether you're a songwriter, music producer, business owner, just talking about the industry as a whole. And, I remember I opened my first studio when I was about 16. And it was hard. It was hard, right? Yeah. 16, 17, I think. It was very hard. It was massive, but... There's a proper space that you had. You rented a space, etc.
Yeah, we rented a massive space. It was so big that we turned some of it into an office. right? So at the time I was in uni. I was studying accounting and finance, London Met. So, and I had a job as well. So I was only there in the evening. So I'd go uni in the morning, work in the afternoons till about 6, 7. Then I go to the studio and then look at the books and stuff like that, the accounting side of it, because my friends were the creators of it, right?
Yeah.
They were the songwriters and producers and stuff. So I was only mainly looking after the business side of it. But that didn't last very long simply because it was being run, as a 16, 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So all of the problems that we experienced then, we were talking about during this session now in 2019.
Yeah.
So we're thinking of, okay, those things that we experienced then are still going around now. And it's not just us doing it, there's a lot of people are doing those same mistakes.
Yeah.
So we're thinking, okay,
what were the mistakes?
Just allowing people in a space without paying in advance, being prompt during, start and finish of a session, bookkeeping, admin, hiring staff, all of these things that allow you to kind of take your studio to the next level.
Yeah.
To run it as a business and not as a hobby. Because what we found is a lot of musicians and artists get their studio because they're like, okay, I can make my own space, but also I can hire it out at the same time. And there's like this cross where it's like, okay, my music comes before, somebody else hiring it.
Yeah.
And eventually it becomes just, a space for yourself. And as a musician, you design the place to be something comfortable for you and don't think about other people. And then when people come in, it becomes very, oh, it's my space, don't do that, and whatever. There's a clash. And what happens is if you put all your time into that space, put all your equipment, whatever, and you spend thousands of pounds, and then you don't get bookings because you spent so much time designing the space, you haven't thought about marketing, you haven't thought about a website, a booking system, all of these things that are the business side of it. You've kind of handled the creative side of it, but you haven't managed the business side of it, and that's what ends up bringing the whole thing down. And that's what ended up kind of, bringing what we had done down in 2008, I think it was, when we had that studio, right?
I'm with you. Yeah, the margins on studio, if you're doing it incorrectly, it doesn't really work out. It's funny, I actually had a studio, but I didn't think to take it to that level. I was renting out the garage in the back of my mum's house and just charging a tenner a session out of the back of the garage. But I always thought, we got to get a space. But I always saw, like you say, the operational challenges versus the profit and the outgoing cost of getting a space. I just thought it was easier just to run it out the back of my mum's, to be honest. And yeah, I left it there because it weren't for me. I couldn't expand it by myself. I didn't have the idea of the app that you have.
That's the thing, because a lot of people don't, over the lot, running my previous businesses, I've learned a lot about marketing and expanding and how to kind of grow, right? The principles of growth, really. Yeah. And that's what I realized, if you, as a creator, you don't think about that because you leave that to your manager. You leave that to somebody who's managing your career. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't, as a creative, you don't want to think about that. You leave it to the person that studied it, right? And this is what the app is about. It's about taking all of the things that a manager would do for you and putting them in the app. Okay. So with the app, let's say you're a creative, an artist, for example. Within the app, what we want to do is do your accounting for you. Right, so book your shows through the app. So within the app, you can sell tickets, right? People can book you as an artist through the app. So let's say somebody books you for £1,000 for your next show. That would come through the app. And the idea is that we would then link that to your QuickBooks account or whatever software you're using, and then you got a record of that, and then it does all your VAT returns and stuff like that. Then you've got everything, because at the moment it's going to your manager, and then your manager's forwarding it to you, and then your manager might mess up, and then you get in trouble for that. We've seen that countless of times, right?
Yeah.
People go to prison in America for tax evasions or whatever because their accountant didn't do their stuff properly. But if that's in an app that you control, that you can see easily, right, and we can support you on how to do that on a very simple, friendly interface, that's what we're about.
Okay,
but also,
makes sense.
Also the idea of the whole studios is, over the years, large studios have kind of gone extinct because people haven't got the money, and technology getting better and smaller. So now there's so many independent, very small studios.
Yeah.
And the problem with those is you don't know where they are because some of them not on Google, and if they are, they're not marketed properly. They haven't got images and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're scattered everywhere, right? Because and this is from experience and from hearing from other artists and stuff. They don't know which studios to go to because, unless their friends have been there and told them, they're not going to really go to a brand new space that they've never heard of.
It's true.
So the whole point of us is saying, okay, let's gather all of the studios around the world, put them in one place, give them great, give them reviews, clean pictures, the same way you would go on a Just Eat app, right?
Yeah.
You can read all the reviews about before you order it.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. Or even, what's the app called where you, Airbnb, right? Exact same thing. You can read it, you like it, you book it, you go, you leave a review. It's the exact same thing. Now, we took that to the next level and said, okay, so we want people to always use the app. We want people to feel good about using the app. We want people to be rewarded. So we created studio rewards. What this means is the more you book, the more rewards you get. And then you can turn those rewards into more studio time.
Okay.
So you build up your studio rewards, and then once it reaches a threshold, you can then convert them into studio credits, which we use to book the studio. So let's say you book 10 sessions, and that earns you 1 hour studios. So you can add that to whenever. You can keep that, until it builds up to 100 studio sessions, And then whenever you want to pay, say, hey, I've got all these studio credits. Let me go and book a studio.
Yeah, no, that's great. I don't know of any studio that's got a loyalty card or any scheme going on. So you're probably the first doing it in the world, maybe. So that's fantastic. It will definitely help as well. Some of the younger people that have less cash, getting those sessions, one free, one here and there, that makes a difference. I remember back in the day when you were like trying to pull cash together to even go studio, you'll be happy to have a free session. When you're working with the guy for so long, you can say, oh yeah, have a free session.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good, that's cool. So do you get an engineer within that session? How does that work?
No, so our personal studios, you don't get an engineer. But other people can list their own studios on there, and they will list their own prices with or without an engineer. But the way our studios work is that they are 24 hours a day, and they have a different price depending on the time of the day. So really early in the morning from 3 a.m. till 8 a.m. is £8 an hour. From 10 till 4 is £10 an hour. And then from 4 to 3 a.m. again is £12 an hour. And that's within our membership scheme. So that comes out as a monthly subscription. So you can get up to like 4 hours a month included in your subscription for £32 a month, right? Which is, ridiculously cheap compared to everybody else. But you can also book, ad hoc ones if you want. If you don't want to be a member as well, you can book as well. But in that price is not included an engineer. But what you can do is go into the app and find an engineer in the area. So you can go to the app and turn your locations on and see who's local and say, okay, I want to book that person, Yeah,
that's great. You've got quite a few features to this app. So it's like I say, it's already out on the Play Store. How are you planning to market? What's the next step for it?
So we've already started speaking to a few investors, but we're not going to finalize anything until we get somebody that we're comfortable with, and that's literally what's holding us back from taking it to the next level. Bigger marketing budget, getting more studios on board, getting more creative. So we want photo studios, film studios, any type of studio, yoga studios, martial arts studios, because the whole idea is that you have one place where you can connect with all type of creative. Let's say you're making a movie now, right? You want to book a movie studio. Okay, you go and find one. Okay, now I need runners. Okay, let me find a runner. They can run. I need to find a lighting guy. Let me find the lighting guy. Let me find a hairdresser. Let me find a makeup artist. All of that. We've already got hairdressers on there. She works in the building. She's on there. You can book her right now. to come to your set and do your stuff.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, this is kind of like creating a virtual manager for a creative, near enough.
Yeah, we want to simplify everything, right? You know, we've got huge plans in innovation, so we're kind of working on, you know, amazing things that I won't speak about now, but we're really looking into machine learning, you know, AI, kind of predicting things and say, okay, this is what you'll need based on your interactions on the app, you know, based on, you know, once we introduce the timeline and seeing what other people are connecting. So let's say, for example, you go through the timeline and you like a certain type of imagery, we can then predict that for when you next have your project and say, okay, you know, based on your previous actions, this is what we think that might look good for your next podcast series, for example. Here's some templates of some imagery or some sounds and stuff like that. That's what we're working on. Yeah.
No, it's a really great app, and like I say, if you haven't already, download it if you are in the creative space. So something like this is set to be a market leader. I don't know of anybody that's doing this particular thing and doing it as well. So why do you think there's a lack of black-owned tech companies within the UK or worldwide?
Well, in the UK, I know we're heavily underrated or overlooked, right? That's just a statistical fact. But I think because we don't see enough of us in that space, we don't aspire to be that, right?
Really?
So if you turn on the TV now, you won't see, you know, a young black person on TV unless they're rapping or playing football. So you want to be a rapper or play football, right? But you see Elon Musk all the time on TV talking about tech. You see, you know, Mark Zuckerberg talking about tech and whatever.
Yeah.
So that demographic of people are going to be like, okay, I want to be like Elon Musk. I want to be like, he looks like me. If somebody doesn't look like you don't have that connection, right? That's why, you know, we listen to a certain type of music we listen to, because the people are giving it to us, look like us, and it's our culture.
Yeah.
You know, but as I got into the crypto space, and I understood the technology behind it, and I loved the technology, I then start to fall in love with technology, and that's why I've gone into the app space. So it's all about, you know, one, experience, two, who you look up to. And when I started looking more into the history of technology and black tech, I realized we're embedded more than we think, you know.
100%.
Uber, we designed that. There's a whole ton of apps that, you know, I have a list somewhere of, you know, the black tech entrepreneurs who are involved in the tech that we use today, but they don't get the recognition, they don't get the spotlight, so we would never know they were involved in these things. So once I learned that, I was like, okay, cool, you know, and I started following a lot of, you know, black tech groups on, you know, social media and stuff like that. But we are, and even in the investment space, you know, we haven't got a lot of we haven't got a lot of, you know, funds for black entrepreneurs. So we don't get the funding for our ideas, and we end up, you know, reaching our ceiling because we haven't got the funding to get to the next level or the partnership to the next level, you know. It's just representation, really. That's all it is. Representation in the necessary places to get ideas to the next level, you know. For example, we've had conversations so far of probably about 8 investors, and only 2 of them are black. And that's not to say, you know, we only want, you know, black people to invest in us. I'm just saying the representation isn't as equal, and that's why I think we don't get as far as we want to get.
How do you think we can go about changing that then? Because there are black people that are very financially well off in the UK, US, and even in Africa. So it's not like there's not capital around in the community. There is. It's just, it's not accessible to us in the same way other communities make capital accessible to entrepreneurs.
That is a great question, and it's amazing because To be honest with you, I'm not sure how to kind of interpret what I want to say in that respect, but how can we tackle it? It's crazy because when I became aware of the space, I asked myself, like the idea we had with Stoodioclub, right? We always question as to, there's so many people in the media. We currently we dominate the charts. Huge numbers, lots of money. I'm like, why didn't somebody in the industry come up with this idea?
Yeah.
That was my initial thinking. I'm like, why did somebody who's already got the money, someone like, I don't know, Tinchy Strider or Tiny Temper, those guys, why do they not have a huge network of studios?
Personally, I think coming from the tech background, and working within music as well, I kind of have the answer to that question. I feel like a lot of your artists, even if they have a studio, to start a tech company, you have to have some kind of interest in tech or some tech savviness about you, I think, to see the scope of what you're about to bootstrap or what you're about to spin up. For example, Nas, he's Coinbase, right? And he speaks about it, but he's aware of tech. Not everybody, even though we all use apps and phones, not everybody looks at an app like, how does that actually work? What does it take to make it work? Do you know what I mean? And I think that part of it, it goes back to, I was having this conversation about being involved in the companies that you use. So if you use the Ubers and you use the Facebooks and all of these apps, why not have ownership in such things? But I think you think to make an app so crazy, you need to be like Zuckerberg and you need a Facebook team to build an app, then it seems a bit more daunting.
Yeah, I guess people look at the final product and say, I could never do that. But realistically, Facebook started off with just a page, and the Facebook, and somebody came in and looked at it and said, no, don't like the Facebook, take that off, take this, do that. Here's $100,000, go and do what I told you to do.
Yeah.
And that's what, once people understand that, and I think we need more education around that, and take that fear out of people and give, I think definitely education, which is what you're doing at the moment. Education is definitely a huge part of how to change our current situation.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, when I heard, what you're doing, I was like, I got to be a part of it. Because I've always wanted to, like, even with Stoodioclub, we're starting a foundation to kind of educate people on, how to navigate properly within the industry itself. Passing on knowledge from other people, getting other people in to kind of give knowledge and stuff like that for free. Right, it's the whole part of the foundation. So the foundation will take money from the company to kind of give away free classes and stuff like that, and give away free resources.
It's amazing.
But yeah, so in terms of, back to your question and how we got to where we are, is I'm gonna have to find a better way. I'll probably send it to you an email.
That's cool.
Like I know it's in here, but I just can't get it out without sounding a certain way, but yeah. Yeah,
no, that's fine. And before we close then, let's hear a bit more about where we can find you. So let's hear about the foundation, how people can get involved, where they go to find you personally, and that the app as well.
Yeah, so with the foundation, just hit us up on the website, which is stoodioclub.com, STOODIOCLUB.com. Me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn, Landry Ntahe, which is LandryNtahe on LinkedIn. The app, Stoodioclub.com, Stoodioclub on the App Store and the Google Store. Download it, give us your feedback. Where we're always willing to make changes. It's still in the very early stages, we're aware, but you can still do a lot. You can manage a lot of your stuff on there, from subscriptions, a lot of features that we haven't spoken about today. We can do a whole hour on the features that we have at the moment, but we're not going to do that. But in terms of getting involved with us, just hit us up on. We've always got a live chat on the website as well, so you can just go on our website, ask some questions, or on the app as well. Download the app, send us some messages, free app for the live chat. Yeah, you can, our first studio is in Hackney, Mare Street, right opposite the Hackney Town Hall and opposite the Hackney Empire Theatre, which is, very nice landmark to be across from, considering the industry that we're in. We want to do a lot of projects. The foundation, we are now working with 2 other foundations as well. One of them being the Rising Tide, which has been in Hackney since, they've been around for 20 years now. And they've got about 5 studios for young people as well. So we're kind of working with them to get young people in studios and working with them and doing some classes, doing some workshops and stuff like that. But we are always looking for more foundations to work with. So anybody sees this, hit us up and see how we can help using our tech and our savviness, really.
Cool. So thank you for appearing as a guest anyway. It's a great conversation, and if there's anybody watching you're a content creator, get the app. If you're a business and you want to be part of the foundation, also sign up to the app. And as you've heard from hairstylists, producers, everybody can use this app and find a way to generate some revenue or find the services that they need. So please do download it. Knowledge Finder will definitely be using the services. So Landry, thank you again for coming down. It's been great. And thank you guys for watching. Subscribe and we'll catch you in the next episode.